Okay, I'm going to have a look at another loss that I had now. This was in round 8, and I had the black pieces against Georg Meier, very strong German player who's 2650. Again, maybe I didn't pick the right opening. I again betrayed my love of the Dutch, and I thought, well, let's give the King's Indian a whirl. Like I mentioned before, I do like trying out different openings just to keep things fresh and try to not get into my opponent's preparation. The problem this game is I probably walked straight into his preparation anyway, because I was expecting one line and he played something completely different in one of the sharpest lines of the King's Indian, and I really didn't have a clue what I was doing, so I was kind of making it up on about move 10 as I went along, which is not really what you want to be doing against such a strong player with the black pieces in a theoretical line. So I really hate openings. If I could go back 200 years where there's no computers, I'd be a much happier boy. It'll be perfect for lazy people as well, because you don't have to do any preparation then. So that would have been quite interesting. I remember having a conversation with someone actually a while back, Duncan Badham from Brighton Chess Club, and he was saying to me, well, how many years ago do you think you'd have to go to be in the top 10 in the world? And I thought that was quite an interesting topic of conversation. For me, probably about 500 years, I guess, maybe a couple of thousand, but still quite interesting, because the standard of play has obviously really improved since the chess bases have been brought out and things like that. So yeah, anyway, interesting. Let's see how this game got on, because it was quite an exciting affair. I won't spend too much time on all the moves, because it's a reasonably long game, but we'll just have a look at the critical moments. So d4, and let's go straight into the King's Indian. d6, knight to f3, castles, bishop to e2, e5. And I sort of come to the conclusion now I was playing d4 with the white pieces that this is probably white's most critical way of playing against the King's Indian, and it is obviously the most theoretical line, and after d5, knight to e7, this is a typical classical variation where black aims to attack on the king's side but white aims to attack on the queen's side. And I do suspect that white will find that this is quite a good line in the forthcoming years with computer help, but it's okay, it's still very unbalanced. And now, before the game, I only looked at the move knight to e1, and I was well prepared for this, but I didn't bother looking at the move knight to d2. So already I was out of my theory here, which is not a good thing to be doing at such an early stage. Okay, I went knight to e8 anyway, so I thought I'd get on with my plan of playing f5, so at least I can get the Dutch in one way or the other. b4, f5, c5, knight came back to f6, this looked like a normal plan, f3, and now I played f4. So it's a typical kind of King's Indian idea. My plan is just to go g5, g4, bring my pieces around and checkmate this guy over here. On the other hand, white's plan is just to go something like, I don't know, take here, some horrible stuff like this, and just destroy my queen side. So at the moment, white is slightly ahead in this line in development, so I probably have gone wrong already somewhere, but who knows, maybe this is all theory as well, don't ask me. So my opponent now playing knight to c4, so bring this knight to a good square. So this is one of the reasons why he puts his knight on d2, because this knight is very well placed on c4, pressurising d6 with the other knight coming here, putting more pressure on d6. I just got on with my plan. If in doubt, attack. That's a good philosophy in chess. Don't mess about, just attack. So a4, okay, I thought I'd bring this guy around as well. You can't checkmate with just one or two pieces, so they've all got to join the party. Bishop to a3. And now I had to take a little bit of time out here, because I did a typical defensive manoeuvre now, rook to f7. The idea is that this rook defends the c7 square later on, and my bishop can come to f8, defend d6, and also the rook can come to g7 later on with ideas of going along the g file. So this rook to f7 move is a typical King's Indian idea. b5, my opponent just keeps punting away, and probably here I think I should take on c5. Again, I'm not totally sure what I should be doing, but maybe this is what I should be playing here at some point. With the idea, if I get two moves in, h5 and g4, I can definitely start threatening some things on the king's side. So maybe this will gain me a bit of time, but for those of you more interested in this, you can go in and have a look on ChessBase or buy yourself a book on it. But let's have a look. Bishop to f8, and now my opponent played b6, so this is a good little plan he's come up with here. I didn't fancy taking on b6, for example, after takes, because after knight to b5, knight to e8, I just kind of felt that it's going to be very hard for me to activate my pieces now on the king side and get an attack going, because I'm so passively placed, especially these guys over here. Well, white can probably increase the pressure on the queen side. Maybe I can play it like this, I don't know. I decided to take on c5. My opponent took on c7, rook takes c7, d6, rook to g7, looked like the right place for the rook, knight to b5. And now I wanted to give up the exchange, and we got to a very interesting position. Bishop to e6, bishop to b2, forces knight into c7, rook takes c7, pawn takes c7, queen takes c7. And this is the kind of position I was aiming for when I played this opening. I've got 2 pawns for the exchange, which is normally quite good compensation. And my position seems quite solid. I'm still hoping to get my g-pawn round up the board later on. And I thought this would be alright for me. The most important thing, though, to bear in mind, well, let's have a look at one more move, queen to b3, is whether I can get one of my knights to d4 square. I mean, I had a very long think, well, after my next move, I should say. If I can move one of my knights to d4, then I'm going to be doing very well in this position, because it blocks up the d-file. So as he's the exchange up, he wants to get his rooks on the open lines, so one reason putting a knight on d4 is to stop that. And also it'd be a good basis for attack. It stops a lot of his play, but it's actually very hard for me to manoeuvre a knight around to d4, and I couldn't find a way of doing it in the game. Okay, played knight to d7 first, with a couple of ideas in mind. One idea was obviously to overprotect this square and this square. Another idea was, given a chance, I'm probably going to go knight to b8, then to c6. And we can see then I'm defending this, and also then my knight can then jump into d4. So this is another potential idea. The other idea I had after knight d7 was to bring my other knight around to d4. So I can do that by going knight to e7, knight to c6, knight to d4. This is probably preferable than moving this knight, because then this knight does a very good defensive job, like I mentioned before, defending b6 and e5. So this is another idea, but it's really whether I can get a knight to d4. If I can get knight to d4, I'll be doing very well in this position. My opponent now played a very clever move. This just shows how strong my opponent was. I mean, a move like a5 looks very logical, but I think this allows me to play my plan of knight to e7 here. I mean, a5 is the kind of move a lot of players would play without much thought. And now after knight to e7, I expect I'm doing quite well here, because this knight is just hopping into d4, and I should be doing well for the exchange. But my opponent played a very clever move. He played the move queen to c3. Which is a very good idea, because it ties me down to the defence of my e5 pawn. If one of my knights moves, he can capture on e5. And this is why I probably have one of the longest thinks of the whole tournament. And again, this maybe shows one of my weaknesses here, that I didn't come up with the right plan. I mean, this is a position that, I don't know, if anyone's got any suggestions here, then please let me know how to continue this this position. I mean, I played the move rook to e8, but my opponent now started to take control. a5, knight to b8, and now knight to b6, a strong move. Okay, I get a knight into d4, but my opponent manages to get a knight to d5, and also he manages to swap off light square bishops. The exchange of light square bishops is very good for my opponent. It's going to benefit him positionally, because it gives him better control of the d5 square. If he can exchange off light square bishops, it means that I can't ever really get rid of his knight on d5. So I think around here my opponent is doing well. It's probably around a couple of moves ago where I went wrong. I'm sure I'm doing alright somehow, but I just come up with the wrong plan. So knight c6 is played, bishop to c4. So very nice positional play from my opponent. Knight to d4. Okay, I do get my knight into the position, but his control is much more important. Now he played queen to c4, and he's clearly on top of things. Nasty pin on my rook on e6. Also very good control of the d5 square, and more importantly, my knight on d4 can be eliminated whenever he wants to with a simple bishop takes d4. And on the other hand, when he gets a knight to d5, it's going to be very hard to eliminate this piece. So I think I'm in a bit of trouble here, and I can't really get any attack going on the king side. It's just not quick enough. So I play queen to s7, trying to break pin. Rook to b1, another very good move. He's just putting his piece lined up against b7. I played h5, better late than never, I guess. Queen to d5. Okay, so he decides not to put a knight on this square. Instead, he has another plan of putting his knight on c4 and increasing the pressure on this b7 pawn. So he's definitely on top of things. Knight to c2. I was getting a bit short of time. I thought I'd try punting some things here. Knight to e3 is the immediate threat. Knight to c4. Knight to b4. Queen to d8. Rook to e7, and now his knight came in. And yeah, my position goes from bad to worse here. Queen to f6, knight to f5, rook to e6, rook on fd1, knight to e7, and I still thought I had some chances here because I can swap off his good strong knight here, but now he played a very good plan. Bishop to c3, knight takes f5, pawn takes f5, queen takes f5, and after this happened, pawn takes, rook takes b4, he was well in charge. The problem is his rooks, as he's the exchange up, are now extremely active compared to my bishop, which can't really get in the game because of the pin. His queen's also a very active piece, but mainly these rooks are just going to come charging down. If I had a couple more moves here, I might be able to generate something on the king side, but it's far too slow. So I tried g4 anyway. Rook takes b7. He had calculated everything very well. Pawn takes g3, pawn takes g3, e4. So it may look a bit dangerous for my opponents, but it's not dangerous because of his rooks and queen's position. The rook's very good on b7, and it's very hard for me to activate anything. Rook to d5 is now played. A very good move. One nasty trick I have to watch out for here is something like queen to h3, queen takes, or maybe not here actually, but at some point queen takes f8 followed by rook to d8. But this doesn't actually achieve a great deal in this position. I'm sure he's got a strong move like rook to g5 check. Yeah, rook to g5 is just going to win the game here. So I have to interpose after rook to d5 with rook to e5. Again, rook to g6 check. This is one tactic that I have to avoid. King here, queen here, and then this queen takes f8 check. King takes f8, rook to d8, checkmate. So this is one thing that is rather nasty, should I say. Definitely worth avoiding, even though if I'd have played that, I'd have finished a lot quicker, so it might have been better. Rook to e5, opponent now swapped off, played, strong move, pawn takes this e4, and the game, he finished the style, queen to c5 check, king to g2, and I run out of checks, so I thought I'd keep punting for a while, but his king slowly got nearer my king, and things got even more embarrassing after something nasty like queen to f6. End of the game, and a very nice win for white. So very impressive play from my opponent, who has been known not to play that exciting chess. He's got a rather dull reputation, but I think he's shown in that game he can play every sort of type of chess. And an interesting opening. I'd like to know what I should have done there. I'll probably have to look this up at some point if I were going to play the King's Indian again. Why didn't I play the Dutch? This is a question I've kept asking myself. My two worst losses in this tournament, actually maybe my only two losses, were when I played the Benoni and the King's Indian rather than the Dutch. So I don't know why I didn't play the Dutch, but well, I suppose it's good to try new things out. But yeah, I think I'm going to have to start playing the Dutch again in future. But yeah, very interesting game anyway. Good play from my opponent. Very interesting positionally at one stage. I mean, like I mentioned before, I think the critical moment was after this very good move that my opponent played queen to c3 on move 25. If anyone's got a suggestion around here, I'd be interested to know if I'm actually doing okay here or not. Maybe I'm just doing badly here. This is another possibility that my position is just bad. And but it seems to me that black should have a way to fight for at least equality here. So please again leave your comments. I'll try to respond to everything you come back at me with. Cheers, goodbye.